Welcome to the 5 More Minutes podcast. I am your host, Shelley Moore, and today I am with the one and only cousin Paul.
Hello, hello.
There he is, he's sitting with me in the flesh.
I'm here in the audio flesh.
I know, it's so good.
That sounds weird.
Audio flesh.
This is the name of our band.
You know what? I think that could be a hit.
Audio flesh.
We were sitting here talking about, if we were to have a podcast, what could be? We're thinking coffee with cousins. It could be called Audio Flesh.
Audio flesh.
Flesh it out. We flesh out things.
Yeah, I like it. I like it a lot.
Except that it was only recently that I thought it was flesh it out. For years, I thought it was flush it out. Like, let's flush it out.
Right, I could see.
Right,
I could see that.
Let's get it out on the table. Like, flush it out.
I don't think I've ever thought of it, so.
But it's flesh it out, like make it meaty.
I like it.
But our podcast, maybe it could be called Flush It Out.
Flush it out.
So here we are. Hi. Maybe it should just be called Bantering with Shelley and Paul. We are in Cranford, New Jersey. I am in the middle of a little end of summer tour, and I'm sitting here with Paul, and I'm just like, Paul, how are we going to kick off the new year? And he's just like, why don't we do a kickoff one together? And I thought, what a great way to start season 2 is to tell all the people how I weaseled you into this project.
Yay!
So Paul, say hi to the world.
Hi everyone. It's my name's Paul. I'm Shelley's cousin. I live in the New York area in the United States of America. America. Yeah, I'm a filmmaker here, and so Shelley wrote me into helping her with projects. Years ago.
I know. And people always ask about you, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's just his cousin Paul, because he does all of the recording and editing kind of behind the scenes of all the videos and the podcasts, and I'm just like, people need to know you, Paul. You're becoming a character.
It's about time people start knowing me. No,
so I thought we'd spend a little bit of time getting to know Paul.
Yeah, so we started... Let's see. Okay, so we started, was it 4 years ago? 5 years ago.
Well, what is it, 2019? So 2016, because in 2016 was when the TED Talk came out, and right after that was the bowling video.
Right, so
the bowling video.
The bowling video. If people don't know, explain a bit about the TED Talk, because that's, people might not know.
The TED Talk was kind of like the big, party. It was kind of the coming out party of how people kind of found out about me and
Shelley Moore.
And so the TED Talk happened in Langley in January 2016, and it was about, if you haven't seen it, it was about kind of this big learning that I had with one of my students under the table, and it was really connected to and foundational to my learning about presuming competence. And so after that happened, I had just started my PhD project, and that's when enter Paul, because there was a contest.
Yes, and so Shelley called me and said, Paul, we should do this contest. I need to make was it 3 minutes? Exactly. Couldn't be any longer than 3 minutes video about your thesis. And was it through...
It was through SHIRK, which is the kind of the research grant for Canada.
Right.
But do you want to know my favorite part of the story?
I don't
know if people know this part. Was that you make this incredible video, but we hadn't yet figured out scripting.
Right. So
it was just me talking. So it was like 4 hours of footage or something.
So we set up the shoot, and Shelley shows up, and I said, well, do you have a script? And Shelley goes, oh no, I've got it. I do this talk all the time. And so I thought, oh, great. And my job is I sit people down and get them to tell their story, and then I edit together their story, little bite that's a little easier to take in a short amount of time. And I thought, oh, this is my profession. Shelley's a great storyteller. This is going to be easy. But we sit down, and I hit record on the cameras, and Shelley just starts going.
I just got so nervous.
And she talked for hours.
Hours.
And then right at the end, she said, so this has to be 3 minutes. And so...
And so you made your magic. But do you remember you sent it to me, and I loved it so much that I posted it right away on Facebook, because I was so excited. And then we found out afterwards that I wasn't allowed to post it. It had to be released by the organization.
Right.
But the part that was frustrating was that in that what was it, 6 hours that it was out there, it had been shared 2,000 times.
Right.
And so we both love data.
Yeah.
And it just broke our little data heart that we had to
all those lost views.
All those lost views and shares.
The great part of it was that it won.
It won.
So,
and now it has 130,000 views or something.
So if you haven't seen the bowling video,
just go type in Shelley Moore bowling and it'll come up.
Okay, great.
So that's how I originally got you in.
Right. And then we just started working on projects.
Yeah, because then a couple of years went by and people would just be like, "Oh, do you have more videos coming out?" And I'm like, "Yeah, Paul."
Yeah.
we should make more videos. And
Why
so
not?
we just decided to start. And so last year was our first season. We had 10 videos.
Yeah, Shelley came out. You came out in January, and we recorded a few.
Yeah.
And then, so we've just been hammering away at them, planning on releasing them 1 month at a time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was it.
And it's been so fun. And it's so good because, like, if you know me at all, you know that I'm a dreamer, right?
No.
I'm a dreamer, but Paul's, like, the doer. And so, like, here I am dreaming. He's just like even today, he's like, so I brought my mic. Are you ready to do a podcast? I'm like, great, Paul.
Yeah.
So, you know, so he kind of makes all of this, like, bring to fruition, which I appreciate.
I love content. I love making things.
You're so good at making things.
Oh, shucks. Thanks.
And then we were sitting here talking about, like, oh, we should talk about when we were kids or whatever, because we totally grew up together.
Yeah. So I grew up in Calgary. I was born in Saskatchewan, and then moved to Calgary, Alberta. And Shelley
grew up in Edmonton.
You grew up in Edmonton with your brother and your mom,
which is like 2.5 hours away. It's not far.
And so it would be like once a month you guys would come down, or we would come up.
Totally.
And so we grew up together, and we would. This is a funny memory because we would take tapes. Music was a big deal for us, and so both of our families are musical. But we would take tapes and we would make fake radio shows with lead-ins, and this is your song for the week.
Yes, we were so good.
We were so cool.
But then after that, I probably forced you to eat poison berries or something.
I don't think you ever made me do poison berries.
It was one of you. I was the oldest. Paul's the second youngest.
Yeah, that's true.
We were almost the bookends.
What would we do? Listen to Pearl Jam.
Remember when this was in Weyburn, when we would have ice cream buckets on our bikes, and that was our gas tank?
Yes, and we would poke a
hole in the bottom, and so we put water in it, and so as we rode, the water would come out.
Yeah.
Those were the days.
I think Sarah was the gas station attendant.
She was attendant.
And she would use the water from the hose to fill up the bucket, and then we would ride around until the bucket was empty. And I think that's
genius.
That's one of my favorite memories.
Oh, totally. And then Jojo would come out and say, lunchtime, and we'd all eat hot dogs and watch Romper Room.
And who's Jojo?
Oh, Jojo.
You have to explain.
Okay, so Paul's mom and my mom are twins. So my mom is Joan and Paul's mom is Joanne. But I just grew up calling her Jojo. You know what? She's right here. Come say hi, Jojo. Here she comes.
Hi, Paul and Shelley.
Hi, Jojo.
Hi, Mom.
Thanks for letting us take over your kitchen this afternoon.
Oh, it's a shame I'm not baking buns.
Well, she's baking cakes, so I'll take that instead.
Today, yes.
She's making 2 cakes.
Yeah, what kind are you making?
Almond cake and green cake.
Oh,
so Danish.
Everyone needs a Dane in their family.
And you've just had a birthday, Shelley.
I did. So this actually leads really nicely into our next part, because we're like, what did we do this summer? Because I just turned 40 last week, and so we had a really big party, and it's funny because now I'm the oldest of the 6, and so now all of you are going to be turning 40.
I know.
After me. It's coming.
It's weird.
You know what, though? I love it. Every year has been better in my life.
I feel like I'm young, but I go to bed at 9:30.
That's why. That's why you feel young.
My knees always hurt, so.
I have noticed the pain.
Yeah, it's
more ongoing and frequent pain.
Getting old.
I know. But yeah, no, so this summer...
Hold on. Can you hit mute on your computer? Yes. Thank you. Okay, so this...
So this summer... This is my first time out in New Jersey this summer, because this was our first summer at Bowen.
Right.
If you've been following all along, you know that my wife and I just moved to Bowen Island from Vancouver. And so we've been having full-on Gulf Island summer, so it's been fantastic.
Amazing. It looks nice.
I know. I can't wait for you to come visit.
I know.
So for the birthday, we had garden lights all up everywhere and gingham tablecloths, and
so you gotta have that gingham.
Oh man, it's a part of.
It's not a party without gingham.
And it's not. You can't be in our family without appreciating gingham.
I don't think there's any gingham.
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 Gingham. I don't have any at my house.
Oh, I bet you do.
Actually, for those of you who always ask, Shelley, the videos, most of them have been filmed at my home.
Oh, people say, they're just like, is that your house? I'm like, no, not at all. They're like, it's so nice.
Oh, thank you, people.
It's true. So what does your summer look like, Paul?
It's been pretty low-key. Last summer we had 2 weddings. It was Shelley's wedding, and then my brother Jens, another one of the cousin gang. Right. He got married. So this year was just pretty calm. We went to LA for a week. We went to Miami. We go to Miami a lot because it's so close and it's awesome. But Yeah, nothing too big.
Yeah.
I've been working a lot, so yeah.
You need a summer like this after a busy summer like last
I think
summer.
so.
No,
I
for
think
sure.
so. And then looks like winter is going to be pretty busy, so it's kind of nice to just be home right now. I travel a lot, just like you do.
Yeah.
And so
I can't wait till the day that we run into the airport.
I know.
Together, like,
that'd be so fun.
like in Indianapolis or something.
Yeah.
It's gonna happen.
Yeah, that's true.
Absolutely.
So yeah, people, listen. Let's coordinate that. Hire Shelley in Indianapolis, and then find a company that I can make some content for in Indy, and then we'll meet there.
And then we'll have lunch in the airport together.
Great.
Buy a hat.
Sure.
Love it. And so here's the other exciting news. I don't know if I told you this, but so I'm in the middle of a tour right now. So yesterday I was in Wisconsin. Love Wisconsin. But next week I get to speak at the CAST conference in Harvard.
That sounds very exciting.
I'm so excited with David Rose.
Oh, David Rose is going to be there?
The David Rose. He is the inventor of UDL.
Oh, good old David Rose. I don't know who David Rose is. I'm going to be honest.
You know what? It's okay. David Rose is how do I explain David Rose? He is like the brain behind Universal Design for Learning, which is it is the most underutilized approach to life and support in the world. Like, okay, here's an example of universal design.
Lay it on me.
This is David Rose. Okay, ready?
Here we are.
So, for example, if you have a building with stairs,
as most do,
right? But then you have a person in a wheelchair.
Okay.
They can't go up the stairs.
Right.
So you could retrofit the building and put in a ramp, or you could build a building that already has a ramp from the start.
Oh.
Right? So it's building for accessibility, but even more than that, because it came out of universal design and architecture, this idea that the universal design principle is that it's not just people in wheelchairs who use the ramp.
Everyone uses the
ramp.
ramp.
And so it's designed for a specific need, but then the more you make that available, the more almost efficient it gets, because it meets the needs of much more people than it's designed. Right.
And retrofitting isn't efficient.
It's so much more expensive, right? Retrofitting. So David Rose, he kind of took that concept in architecture and kind of made it into this incredible education theory that is okay, well, what are the ramps for learning? What can you do in design for learning that's going to be designed for one but good for all? And so there's there's so much research around it. So I get to speak with David Rose at the CAST conference.
You should ask him to be on your podcast.
You know what? I really would love him to be on. David Rose, if you're listening to this, or if you know David Rose, say Shelley Moore needs to interview you for the podcast.
Do it, David.
Well, this is how I got Todd Rose, so...
Yeah. Oh, so we started the podcast.
Yeah.
And the podcast originally was to support the videos, the monthly videos that we're making. And so for season 1, Shelley was thinking, oh, who would I want to... I asked her, who would you want to interview? And you named off people, and you said, but I'd really love Todd Rose. And we had just finished the...
End of Average.
The End of Average video, which is based off kind of some of his book
stories,
and his stories, and because you were so inspired by it. And then I said, well, why don't you just call him or text him, message him, actually message him on Twitter.
Yeah.
And then
I was like, no way. There's no way.
You're like, this is Todd Rose.
But I'm glad you pushed me because
then you reached out to him
and he said yes.
And it was an amazing podcast.
It was a great podcast.
And I'm just excited that he enjoyed the video.
I know. And a couple weeks later, he was on Armchair Expert with Dak Shepard.
Oh, no way.
So it's kind of
So it's kind of
2 degrees of Dak
Shepard. Yeah, very cool.
Who sleeps at night? This is what my brain goes through.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah, so that's kind of how we got here today, hey?
Yeah, and so Shelley flew in last night, and we talked this morning, and I said, why don't we do a podcast? No, we said this last night. Yeah. We're texting, and I said, why don't we do a podcast? Because Shelley's out here for a day where we're going to film the start of the second season of the 5 More Minutes.
Sure are.
Yeah.
It's going to be so good.
And so we're going to shoot 3 of them tomorrow.
The first 3 videos, yep.
And I said, well, why don't we do a podcast? Because you were just in Wisconsin, people were...
asking me about the podcast.
Yeah, I said, what happened? So part of that is Shelley was robbed in Vancouver.
That's true.
Because there's a thing about Vancouver is you shouldn't lock your car. You should just leave it open.
This is what Calgarians say.
Just don't go to Vancouver. No, but all her recording equipment was in her car, and then someone who needed that recording equipment more than you.
You know what? When it happened, I was just like, you know what? Maybe this person is going to have a hit podcast, and I can be a part of saying that I was a part of that.
And so they, cracked open a door and popped your trunk and took your stuff.
Yeah.
And so that stinks.
It did. It really did.
still-
But, everything's replaced now.
Great.
And it's all ready to go.
Fantastic.
So, look, we're recording right now. So,
Yeah.
it's going to be great.
And so I thought, well, this will be a great
Perfect kickoff.
kickoff to season 2. So I wanted to ask you,
Yeah.
so what's in store for season 2?
Oh, okay. So, based on, because I got so much great feedback from
So-
people.
And if people don't know,
Yeah.
season 1 is the first, how many? We did 10 videos.
We did 10 videos, we did 10 podcasts, and we did 5 video strategies.
Right. And so that was season 1 of,
Yeah.
that's kind of a batch of content that we made
Yeah.
for this kind of inclusion movement that we're trying to get
That
going.
we are,
Rocking.
we're going.
we're doing
and
something.
we're not stopping.
There you go. And so that was season 1. And then we had always known that if it was taking off and doing
Totally.
well and people were
appreciate it
viewing,
and using it.
Yeah.
And I've just been getting such incredible feedback about how useful the content is. And I'm like, you know what? Like, I love it. Paul loves it. You love it. Let's just kind of keep going. And so, season 2.
here we are. Yay!
Yay! So,
Every time we say yay, by the way,
we're flapping our hands.
Yeah, jazz hands. Oop.
You know what? We'll take a picture and put it. We'll do a boomerang.
Yeah, jazz
We'll do a
hands.
boomerang. So, so tomorrow we're going to film the first 3 videos, which are very exciting. We have even more metaphors for you.
So many metaphors.
So many metaphors.
So, but what's getting you excited about season 2?
You know what I think it is I think that, the more that that's Winston, by the way, shaking. The more that I'm kind of getting into this work and I have this fortunate opportunity to travel around and get to know all these companies, is that we're kind of at the point, I feel like, where people get it. They're like, okay, I get it. Inclusion, it makes sense. But the question now that's really coming out is, okay, what do I do? Like, there was one person who was sitting in a presentation, and I was only there for an hour, right? And so we go through the whole little, what is inclusion and diversity and why it's important. And then she looks at me and she's like, you're done? I'm like, yeah, it was just a keynote. And she's like, no, you can't be done. Tell me what to do. I'll do whatever you say. Just tell me what to do. And I think so, like, people are so hungry for strategies
Right.
and really understanding that, like, how do you actually do this on a Tuesday? Like, it's Tuesday morning. What do I do to meet the needs of a diverse group of people?
Right.
And so I think that this year, I think we really want our videos, like, people get it. We have the how, the videos for what it means is out there. So I think this year we really want to target what does this mean? Like,
Right.
how do we do it, as opposed to just what is it?
Right. So
Yeah.
it's you want it to be even more applicable.
I want it to be really applicable. And I
Right.
feel like that's the biggest question I'm getting, is just like, people want to know how.
Right. And so people have seen the videos, and so you're doing these speaking engagements and people have seen the videos. So how's that been with the Connect to Purpose?
Well, what's really neat is that, I mean, they say, the people in the world,
Right.
say that, like, people, like, they can pay attention for what, like 3 minutes?
Right.
Like 5 minutes is pushing it.
Right.
But what I find is, if you can hook them with those first few minutes,
Got to get them.
people like people are loving the additional content as much as those videos, because
Right.
there's a place to get kind of the taste of it, dip your toe in, but then there's more places to find out more information if you want that. And so
Right.
I also like that part of kind of what we set up here, because we have, okay, yeah, here's a little,
Just a little.
love sticker,
Right.
but hey,
This is how you live it.
This is much more information if you want to dive deeper.
That's great.
And I think just, like, committing to keeping it accessible. Like, I want parents to watch this, and teachers to watch this, and administrators to watch this, and students to watch this, and self-advocates, and just to look this and be like, okay, I get it.
Right.
This is something that can apply to me. And because the other thing I'm realizing is that people are watching and using this content, like, that are no longer just in education anymore.
Right.
Right? Like,
I was actually in New Brunswick
yeah.
for a funeral.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, yeah.
And someone had told me that they had watched the first season of videos about inclusion, but applied it to a corporate strategy that they were
Right.
doing about inclusion in the workplace, which is great.
Well, and I mean, like, the concepts that we're talking about are not specific to education at all.
Yeah, it's
right?
universal.
Totally. And so keeping that in mind also, to say, okay, well, what would this look like from the parent point of view? What
Right.
would this look like? Because originally this was made for teachers, because that's what I am,
Right,
but
right.
realizing that it has a much bigger, like, spread
Right.
than I anticipated, which is great, but
Right.
just important to consider for the audience,
That's totally true.
Yeah, so videos,
Videos.
one a month.
One a month.
I think the video strategies are really useful too. I think
Right.
people are really liking those. Those take a little bit more work, but
Sure.
I'm committed.
But
I
they're
can do
great.
it. I can do it. People like them,
People
right?
like 'em.
It's the
Why not?
how. And then we were talking about the podcast, because I played around. I think it took me a year to figure out how to even do a podcast. Like,
So if you don't know, doing a podcast is a lot of work. For you listeners, doing a podcast requires very thoughtful time, because to
Yeah.
sit and talk, it's not always easy.
no.
Especially if you're tired and you've been traveling all week. And So it takes a lot of work. It's like a full-time job sometimes. So figuring out that rhythm, I'm sure, was probably difficult.
Well, even just, like finding the people and setting up the interviews, like it was tricky. It took time that I just didn't really have. But I've kind of organized next year to be a little bit more like anticipating that a little bit better.
Sure.
So our goal is to have at least
what?
One a month.
One a month. Okay.
That for sure, one a month.
One great podcast.
One great podcast a month. But we are playing around with also having like a second podcast for like kind of more kind of intimate question answer.
Sure. So if
some banter.
Yeah, if you're a listener and you have questions or you have topics you want to talk about, even if you want to pick Shelley's brain on a single topic.
Yeah.
They should email you.
Well, and I was thinking too, because I'm getting so many emails with some like such great questions, but I'm thinking, okay, well, the time that it takes to respond to this one person, like, if someone is reaching out to ask that question, there's going to be like 25 other people who have that question as well. So like, I don't know, maybe playing on that and taking some of those questions and sharing them and having some discussion or whatever. But great. So yeah, we're still playing around, but
it's all about getting a rhythm to.
That's totally what it is. I think we have the rhythms for the videos.
The rhythm, the videos. They're coming. Yeah. Oh my God. But yeah, so we have the videos, and I think it's going to be a good year.
I'm excited.
We have some exciting stuff.
Potatoes,
cupcakes,
alarm clocks, all of the metaphors.
Lots of wild animation. I have new animations. I'm going to do some new animations.
The best part is every one of my scripts is more than 5 minutes, and so Paul's always just like, nope, cut it.
Can't call it 5 more minutes.
I know. It's becoming like 5+ minutes.
5+ minutes.
No, we got to keep it 5.
5 minutes. That's the sweet spot.
I can do it small. All right.
So, if you could interview one person, like your dream person, this season, who would it be?
Well, that's two questions.
Okay.
My dream person and who I like. Okay. You know who my dream person would be?
Who?
Obama.
Barack.
I would love to talk to Barack.
Yeah.
A little coffee.
Sure.
I just don't know how realistic that is. I mean, you're probably going to tell me to email him.
He's a busy guy.
But you know who I would love to get on the podcast, and actually we've been corresponding a little bit, is Andrew Solomon. Do you know who he is?
I don't.
Andrew Solomon is the author of a book called Far From the Tree. And you know that saying,
the apple doesn't
fall far. He's playing on that, and it's what if the apple does fall far from the tree? Like, what if your children aren't like you at all?
Oh, interesting.
And it's kind of playing with identity.
Oh, cool.
And so it really kind of like connects to teaching. And what do you do when your kids aren't like you and you have to teach kids who aren't like you? And so I've reached out to him, and he has said he's totally for. We have to kind of find a time. So if we could get that this year,
that'd be cool. Where does he live?
I'm not sure. In America.
America.
And if any of you know Barack.
I think that's a toughie, but I don't. Let me think.
Obama.
I don't think
I feel like he's an inclusive guy. I feel like that he could have one or two things to say.
Right.
You know what? I have dreams, probably monthly, that me and Barack and Michelle go out for dinner.
Oh, really?
Totally. So
like an actual fall asleep dream.
Yeah, like I'm dreaming and we're out for dinner.
That's great.
I know.
Actually,
so I feel like if we just got that on a podcast,
Do you know my dad met Barack Obama?
Oh, it doesn't surprise me at all. He sneaks into all these conventions.
He was in New York, and he went to the Letterman show. And he was walking by, like David Letterman. This was like 5 years before he ran for president.
Yeah.
Like, this is a long time ago.
Yeah.
And my dad was walking, and he saw him standing outside the theater, and he's outside like the back door where the guests go, and no one knew who he was.
Yeah.
But my dad's a big politics nut.
Winston wants to talk.
So he saw him hanging out at the back door, and Barack was having a cigarette.
Yeah, he's a smoker.
He's a smoker, which is so funny.
I love it.
Yeah. So he was having a cigarette, and my mom and dad were walking, and he was standing outside the door, and my dad said to my mom, I need 5 minutes. And my dad's the type of guy, he'll talk to anyone, and he's a politic nut. He loves politics, so he said, give me 5 minutes. My mom said, no more than 5 minutes, because my dad could talk hours. So, they didn't know he was going to be the next president of the United States. So my dad stood and talked to him for a bit and chatted it up, and then my mom said, Ramo, it's time to go. And then they left, and it's funny because my mom said if she had known, it's like, this is, one of the greatest leaders of our time.
Totally.
It's crazy. So,
Oh, that's so funny.
so talk to Dad, I guess.
Okay, I have a little bit of a kind of story like that.
Okay.
So when I lived here, 2005, lived in New York City, and so there was the Pride Parade.
Right.
And Hillary Clinton was marching and gave her a high five.
Very nice.
Look at it. It's kind of like it.
The one time I was watching CNN,
Yeah.
and it was, I think it was on the anniversary of 9/11,
Yeah.
like years later,
Yeah.
and I'm watching, and there's a service happening at some church near, I can't remember the name of it, anyway, and they have the camera on Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton,
Yeah.
and like 4 rows behind them is my dad,
Of course.
because he
Like,
got into
how
this. I don't know how he does it.
He's so funny. He'll come home and he'll just be like, "Oh yeah, I made it into the Democratic convention today," or
Right.
"Oh hey, gave a fist pound to George Bush today." Like he's so
it's
funny.
crazy.
He just gets in. He just talks his way through
Because
anything.
he's in the CIA.
You know what?
He's probably in the CIA.
If he came out after all these years and said, "Family, there's something I need to tell you,"
I'm
and
a
he
spy.
said that, I
wouldn't be surprised.
I wouldn't even blink. I'd be like,
Oh, of
typical.
course. Yeah, that makes
typical.
sense. So
Maybe we'll have Uncle Ramo on here one day.
that would be.
He would
unreal.
have one or two things to say.
Oh, sure, for sure.
Absolutely. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in to our little kickoff podcast.
Yeah. Thank you for watching and listening and
Yeah.
taking part. And there's Winston. That's
Winston
our
says
dog.
it's time to go.
Yeah. Everyone, thank you so much for listening. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast and subscribe to the YouTube channel
Be part of the whole family.
and subscribe to the email list. Just do the whole thing.
All the things.
That
Then you
stuff
won't miss
really helps.
Any of these fun conversations.
Exactly. And share the content if you can. If you know someone who's going through
Those questions.
going
trying
through-
to navigate the system.
Yeah, it's funny, I meet parents all the time with young kids, and they are going through, they're finding out that their kids have some sort of
Need some support in some way.
having some sort of need, and they don't know where to start. And this sort of content is for those people.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
share with those people. If you're having conversations, like, these are resources. Actually, my wife at her work, someone she works with, one of her peers, found out her son needed supports, and they didn't really know what to do, and she suggested checking out the page, and it was
No way.
it was good for her.
I love that. So that's the thing, that you send this content out, you don't know what happens to it. So
Right.
it's nice to hear those stories come
Exactly. So,
back.
all
Well,
right.
thanks everybody.
All right. So thanks for listening.
Thank you as always for tuning in, and we will see you soon.